All right, we are live. Beeb and DStyle together once again, bringing back the old Rope-A-Dope radio days. Big triple header tonight, man. John Jackson versus Jamel Charlo. Jamal Charlo versus Austin Trout. And Erislandy Lara versus Vanes Martirosyan topping off the card. First fight was a shocker. We thought that Jamal Charlo would actually be the boxer, and it was the other way around. John Jackson played the role of boxer in this fight, and he was throwing a lot of touch jabs, trying to offset the rhythm of Charlo. And Charlo was trying to come in. He was throwing like a very hard jab, trying to close the gap, and he was trying to make this a rough inside fight, which was uncharacteristic for him. And John Jackson was just doing a lot of subtle movement, and he was just able to kind of step away, just basically stick and move a lot against Jamel Charlo, and this was very, very surprising. I didn't expect this to happen. I thought it would definitely be the other way around. So they definitely switched roles in this one, and John Jackson was very effective with counter right hands when Jamel tried to step in. He was timing very well, and he just looked to be a little bit quicker. And I think Jamel Charlo had problems dealing with the unexpected movement, and because of that, he was getting countered. And both guys were going to the body pretty well, but out of nowhere, Jamel Charlo in the sixth round landed a huge right hand. It was kind of a short looping shot, which we're not used to seeing from him. He's used to, having the range and being able to have the distance to turn that right hand over and catch guys at the end of the shots. And he got an unexpected knockout in this fight, at least for me. I thought this fight was going to go the distance. But, Jamel Charlo definitely, put on a great display at the end. He was behind on my card. I only had him win it 2 rounds up until that point. And I just thought the fight was hanging in the balance for him, and he needed something big to turn it around. And he pulled the rabbit out of the hat, and he was able to do that. The next 2 fights were actually a lot more competitive than I thought they would be. D-Style, what did you think of Jamal Charlo versus Austin Trout? That was a very surprising fight as well, because Austin Trout put up a much better effort than I anticipated.
Well, thank you for saying the first name, because I always mix them up, Jamal and Jamal. But so you know what? He looked good in the fight. It was. I'll be honest. I thought it was going to be a close fight, like it was, right? So, but then again, I'm biased because I'm a big Austin Trout fan. He's from El Paso, Texas. He grew up here, and now he resides in Las Cruces, just about a 40-minute drive from here. And you know what? The fight itself, let's just say that. I think what made it competitive was the fact that, I don't know if you noticed this, Austin Trout was throwing some straight body shots to the body, right? I think that was keeping Charlo a little wary. I really do. It didn't prevent him from, having any offense in the fight. But I think what that did, it opened Austin Trout to throw some straights to the body, also some straights upstairs. And he didn't really find a lot of success with that until in the second half of the fight. But maybe it was a little too late, but I think he wore down Charlo a little bit. It just wasn't enough in the end. You know what I mean? It just wasn't enough. A little too late, in my opinion. I gave Trout, 3 of the last 4 rounds. Personally, I don't know if you would agree with that. Didn't land the hardest shots, but he still landed his own, crisp, clean shots throughout the fight. I think the first 6 rounds got away from Austin Trout. He fell behind in my scorecard. He only won about 1 of the first 6 rounds in my scorecard, so he definitely fell behind in the first half. He came back strong in the second half. It just wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough.
Yeah, I thought the big difference here obviously was the size and the punching power of Jamal Charlo. You could see every time he landed a shot against Austin Trout, there was like anguish in his face, and he was pushing him back with everything he landed. And he was throwing a hard jab. He was throwing a very hard jab, and he was following up with the powerful right hand like he always does. But there were times when Austin Trout, he looked so quick in this fight, where he would time the jab, so he would catch the jab, and then before Charlo could shoot that right hand, he was shooting his left hand, and he was getting ahead of Charlo, and he was beating him to the punch with the left hand. So he was countering him, but basically punching in between the combination of Charlo, and he was doing that very well. And a lot of the punches, I think the jabs particularly, were kind of like touch jabs. They were rhythm breaking jabs. And I thought Trout and Jackson fought a similar fight, if you really think about it. But the only difference was that, Jamal was just so strong, and he was walking through everything Trout was throwing. Like he had a poker face on there. And as you said, I thought he slowed down a little bit towards the end, because enough of those body shots, you put enough of them in the bank, and I don't care how big of a puncher you are, they're going to have an effect on you. And they definitely, I thought, started to have an effect on Charlo towards the end of that fight. Definitely, no question about it. But, again, right. Austin Trout, probably, he said that this would be his last shot at the title, but I don't think so, because he held his own in there. Yeah. I actually had this at 8-4 fight. I thought it could have easily been a 7-5, depending upon how you scored it, because some of these rounds are real hard to score. But I just had to go with the more effective punching, and I thought that both guys threw around the same amount of punches. In certain rounds, you could definitely see that Trout was throwing more, but overall, throughout the course of the fight, there were times when Jamal was just pushing him back, and he was keeping him at bay, and that was preventing him from getting off as well. And it's hard to constantly be pushed back and having to reset. And you can't always suck guys into counters when you're being pushed off balance, which I thought was happening, especially with the jab of Charlo. But as the fight went on, Charlo started throwing less and less of the jab, and he was basically walking in a little bit.
It was that straight right to the body, I think.
That's what he was doing. He was throwing a lot of right-hand leads, thinking that he could do something with that punch.
Also,
trying to really hurt him. And to Trout's credit, he hung in there. He definitely hung in there to the end.
It was one of those fights, even though I gave Charlo 5 of the first 6 rounds, but I still felt it was competitive, but clearly Trout was losing those rounds. But the one thing I don't know, it's Austin Trout was, when he was throwing that straight to the body, he was landing it at times. It was kind of, it was keeping Jamal from getting more offense later in the fight. But I think the big thing was Trout was really setting up, I think Jamal was having a hard time gauging. This was just late in the fight. If Trout was going to throw it to the body or upstairs, and if you noticed, he snapped his head back a couple times late in the fight. Trout did. He found some success there, but it just wasn't enough. This kid's just too big, too strong. He already had too big of a lead, and he was landing his own shots as well, even in the rounds they gave Trout. And Trout himself, he was bullied around a lot in portions of that fight, and his face was just giving up on him. So you saw the effects, right? So it's just good effort by Trout. It just he was just beat by a better fighter, and that's a bigger, better fighter, that is. So
yeah, the beginning of this fight, it was definitely all Charlo's, and then Trout did come on in the later rounds in the second half of the fight, and this was very similar to the Canelo fight a little bit, but I thought that Trout did a little bit better in this fight than he did against Canelo, even though I had the Canelo fight a draw. I just thought that he in the Canelo fight, he started strong, and he kind of wore down in the second half. This fight was a little bit of the opposite. And, when you finish strong, it leaves a lasting impression with the judges. And, that's what they like to tend to see, because those earlier rounds, they can go either way, especially like the first 2 rounds. They're usually feel-out rounds. Those are usually swing rounds. So if you could steal one of those and then you finish strong in the second half, it gives you a better chance with the judges, definitely. Whereas if, you lose the second half, then, there's no way, unless you build up an early lead, you're in trouble here.
What else, though?
I thought he finished strong.
You know what else, though? Just we have to kind of throw this in there, and I think it could kind of explain why Trout maybe had more success in the second half. If just like they pointed out on Showtime, Jamal hadn't gone the distance that many times, So Trout has it kind of down pat how much energy he needs to, save for the second half of the fight. for the championship rounds. He's been there many times with Canelo and other fighters, even fights he was getting dominated in, like in the Erislandy Lara fight. Those are 2 he lost going the distance, but he's gone the distance many times against Miguel Cotto, right? So at the experience may have played a big role here, and this is going to be it was a good learning experience for Charlo. It really was.
No, definitely it was a great learning experience. But, it was interesting after the fight because he looked gigantic. People talk about how big Canelo is, but let's take a look at Vanes Martirosyan and Jamal Charlo tonight. They were gigantic. They looked really big. They were both around 170, it looked to me. And you could definitely tell a difference between the size of Jamal.
I think Vanes, the official weight was 170, by the way. I think they showed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jamal was around the same as well. So it'll be interesting to see if he can really stay at this weight like he says he can. I don't know. I don't know if I want him to move up just yet. He's definitely big and long enough to do it, unlike Canelo, who's kind of short and stocky. How would he do against the Canelo right now? That would be an interesting fight, no?
Oh, that's a great fight. I mean, interesting question would be, who do you think is the stronger guy? I mean,
yeah,
just in terms of strength, that's interesting. That's an interesting fight, man. I'm not even prepared to say who would win right now, to be honest. But that is a very interesting fight, and I don't know about you. I don't think he would mind fighting at 155.
No. I mean, obviously Canelo's got the experience, but
yeah, he's gone a distance several times. Yeah,
and he's been in there with tougher guys. Definitely, he's been in there with Mayweather. He's been in there with Trout before. He's been in there with Lara before. So it would be very interesting to see.
Cotto,
but Cotto and Trout, did just as well against Canelo than he did against Charlo. So it'd be interesting to see how these two guys match up. Because again, Canelo's not a volume guy. Canelo's not a volume guy. He's not a speedy guy.
Yeah.
To say where Trout is, would be a totally different style matchup. So if they, get into a kind of a slugfest in spots, it'll be interesting to see who gets the better of who.
Very true. And you know what? It's a good fight for Canelo because no one can accuse him of fighting a smaller guy or anything like that, right? So,
yeah.
And like I said, Jamal would mind not having to cut an extra pound. So, why not,
Well, again, let's move to the main event because this was a very, very interesting fight. Let's talk about Erislandy Lara versus Vanes Martirosyan 2.
Headbutt fest.
Why? Yeah, on paper, when you look at these two fighters, Erislandy Lara seems like such a much more highly skilled fighter than Martirosyan. But why, when these guys fight, it's always a competitive matchup? And that's not taking anything away from Martirosyan. Yep. It's just that's just how good Lara is, at least in my opinion. What are your thoughts? Why do these guys match up so tough against each other?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, look, I'm high on Lara just like you. But, I mean, Lara's not invincible or anything like that, right? So if you could manage to make it a physical fight against Lara, just like we saw in the Angulo fight, on paper, I mean, if we were just to rate just skill, I mean, I think most people would say, yeah, Lara, right? Over Angulo, but it was still a very close fight, and you could argue if it wasn't for the condition of that swelling that Angulo had, who's to know what would happen in that fight. But I think Lara's Achilles heel is when you make it physical and when you go to the body, and I think it's not always about who's the best fighter on paper. It's about the game plan and how you execute the game plan. And I think Vanes in this fight had as good as a game plan as he could have had. He attacked the body, and he was relentless on the body. You could tell. I mean, Erislandy Lara looked so uncomfortable when Vanes would just sit on those body shots. He would even double it up at times, and you could just tell it was bothering Lara. And I could see it in his body language. And the other thing that Vanes is willing to do, I mean, I'm not saying he's just throwing defense out of the window or anything, but he's willing to take some punishment in order to get on the inside. and land those body shots. He took some big left hands, straight lefts from Lara, which are, I'm sure, not easy to take. And Lara he even landed some short hooks. Lara, he did a good job with that when Vanes would come in close. But I think it's a combination of executing a game plan, and if you have a game plan and you execute it, even a fighter who isn't as good on paper could beat a better fighter. And I think that's what we saw here. Not that I think Vanes won, but that's what made it a tough fight for Lara. I mean, it's that old term in boxing, right? Turn it into a back alley brawl. And I'm not saying he succeeded on that completely, but that's what you have to do with Lara. It gets him out of his element. He looked, even though I feel he edged it out, I mean, it's like he just got away. I felt like he just got away from the back alley here. You could tell when the final bell rang, one guy wished he had another 3 rounds, and the other guy was glad that we only have 12 rounds now, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think you broke that down perfectly, because Lara is so elusive. He moves his head very well. He gets low. He likes to dip and duck underneath shots. And the only place you could really touch him is the body. That's the only thing he really gives you in a fight. And you could definitely see he doesn't like it up close, because his first instinct is to grab when someone gets close to him. And if you're a big, strong guy, you could basically work your way and fight your way out of those clinches up close, and you could work very well on the inside, because a lot of guys have shown effectiveness to the body against Lara if they're able to, stand up to his shots, work behind a hard jab, and just force their way inside. Because if you can get past that one shot from Lara, there's not much else coming behind it, because he does throw practically just basically one punch at a time. He's not a guy who's going to bring a lot of heat. He's not going to bring a lot of volume. So basically all you have to deal with is that one punch. If you take that one punch and you move forward and go through it, then you can work your way inside. And Vanes Martirosyan did the right thing. He would bend his knees, and he was digging hard to the body. When Lara was trying to wrap him up, he had one arm free. He kept whapping away. And he was just hitting whatever he could if the body wasn't available. He's hitting arms. He was hitting shoulders. And we saw how, he had a nice little run in the later part of that fight, but I kind of thought that Lara came back in the 11th and the 12th. But in rounds like 8, 9, and 10, I thought that Martirosyan definitely made a strong stand in those 3 rounds, and I thought that he made a statement in those 3 rounds, and he made this fight competitive. He made it close. He did everything he had to do to keep himself in this fight. He wasn't going to allow himself to be blown out of there and picked apart by Lara. He was willing to walk through the fire to get to where he needed to be and get inside the kitchen with Erislandy Lara and really work up close effectively, which I thought he did in a lot of spots in this fight.
You bring up a great point here. I mean, like in the Canelo fight, when Lara would land the left hand, Canelo would step away to avoid it, like as if another shot was coming, And in most cases, you may say, well, that's the right thing to do. I mean, you don't want to get – you just got punched in the face. You don't want to get hit with another shot. You know what I mean? Yeah. So Canelo will start bobbing and weaving, or as if – where Vanes, in this case, when he took the left hand, it's almost like he said to himself, well, I already got hit with his best shot. So I'm already here. I'm already halfway there. So I'm literally just going to go after it here, And they did a great job, man, just pressuring Erislandy Lara here. Lara stood in front of him more than I've seen Lara in recent fights. I don't know. That's a combination of feeling like, I don't want to, I don't know. I think that's Lara's decision. I don't know if that was just a game plan on this specific fight, or if he just wanted to kind of show that he could be a little more aggressive. But he paid for it with those body shots, man. He paid. Lara tomorrow is going to have an ice pack, all right, on his rib cage, man. And you know what? Just saying that was not a low blow, right? I'm just saying.
No, I think the referee, I think Vic Drakulich did a horrible job here. Yeah. And these referees really need to understand where the belt line is. They need to really analyze where the trunks are, how high the trunks are pulled up, before the fight starts. And, you know, if the navel is being covered by the waistband, then the belt line should be legal. And that's where the majority of those shots were landed. And you take a point away. I don't think the point deduction really had an impact or effect on the outcome of the scoring, because I had it 115, 112. For Lara, it would have been 115 and 113 without the point deduction. So
but not the scoring.
Yeah.
Not the scoring per se. I agree with that, because I think I scored the fight regardless for Lara. But
it changes up the strategy. Yeah.
But not only that, I mean, the strategy, yes, good point. I wasn't even thinking about that, but that's a good point. But not only that, I mean, who's to say Vanes was about to land some more body shots before that round ended?
It prevents him from even wanting to go to the body in fear of getting a point deducted again. And that's why I hate when you have a referee make such an impact and have such an effect on the fight, especially in a close, hotly contested contest like this. It's just very discouraging to see that, man. It makes me pissed off. And I was actually really upset with the way this officiating was in this fight, no doubt.
Yeah. Plus, and then also they stopped. I mean, they stopped it that one time. I don't remember them showing a replay for that. Maybe I missed it or something. The very first time, right, where he told him to keep him up, and Lara took like a small little break there. And then there was a second time where, you know, I mean, you would think like if Vanes was blowing him all night or something. I mean, that's how he acted, the ref. And it gave Lara some more time there. I mean, I just, believe it or not, those extra 30 seconds, they make a big difference in a fight, in the championship rounds. They make a huge difference. You know, 5 seconds in a championship round is an eternity, you know? So, you know, when you're tired and when you're getting hit to the body. So, I mean, I'm not saying if I was a betting man, I would say, no, I wouldn't have made a difference in the final outcome, but you never know, you know, so.
Well, like I said, it affects how the fighter, you know, approaches the fight and finishes the fight, and it affects his strategy moving forward, because, again, you're going to be afraid of another point being taken away, number one. And number two, it just makes a fighter less aggressive, because he knows the referee is watching every move he makes. So he's got to be very cognizant of what he does. He's got to be aware if he, you know, throws an inadvertent headbutt or an inadvertent elbow or whatever the case may be, the referee's already looking at him. So he's already on the referee's radar. And, you know, just another point to make as well, because another punch that was very effective here was the uppercut. And we also saw Canelo Alvarez landed a beautiful uppercut. And that's another punch that I think Lara's susceptible to, because when he bends down and he crouches, he's looking upward, you know, expecting shots upstairs. But if you go up and underneath him, because he takes his eyes off the lower half of your body and he's looking upstairs at your shoulders. You know what I'm saying? So he's really focusing on a punch being thrown upstairs. That's why he gets so low and his eyes are focused upward. And you can sneak an uppercut up underneath him as well. And that's, I think, what happened in the Canelo fight. That's how he got caught, from an uppercut that he did not see. And it caused his eye to, you know, have a big gash, and the blood was really flowing into his eye, and it really affected his performance for the rest of the fight. So that's another punch. And even if you look back at the Angulo fight, he kind of threw a half hook, half uppercut. So it was like a 45-degree angle type punch with the left hand. And that was another punch that got through and actually knocked Lara down. So because he gets so low and because he's looking upward and focusing on shots coming from upstairs, he takes his eyes off of the body shots that are coming and the uppercuts from up and underneath. So that's another thing to look at when you're analyzing a Lara fight. Those are two punches to look for: the body shots, obviously, and the uppercut.
Well, he found the uppercut late. You know, like late in the fight.
Yeah.
So he would have found it earlier. You never know, but maybe that could have been a lot to do with because he was trying to protect the body, so he was bending down too. So.
Well, at the end of the day, you know, both fighters showed some vulnerabilities here, but Vanes Martirosyan definitely was the guy, in my opinion, who overachieved in this fight, and Erislandy Lara basically squeaked by. If you really want to think about it and look at it objectively, Erislandy Lara squeaked by again, And, you know, a lot of these rounds and a lot of these fights are left hanging in the balance because there's just so many moments of inactivity from Erislandy Lara. And I know he's a pinpoint accurate puncher, and there's a lot of special things he does in there. But judges are gonna, you know, be sour on a lot of the things that he doesn't do. And that's activity, and that's sustaining a steady pace throughout the course of the fight. Judges don't like when you take rounds off. And if you notice, Canelo is really starting to pace himself better, and he's fighting more. You know, he's always, you know, doing something now. He's not really having moments of inactivity. He's always throwing a jab. He's always stepping forward. He's always trying to create openings, whereas Erislandy Lara is waiting for openings. So he's got to be able to create openings as well as just wait for openings. And I think the judges are going to start penalizing him for that once he gets into these big fights with bigger names. And, you know, with all due respect to Martirosyan, you know, he's not a Canelo. You know what I mean? He's not a you know, a Charlo just yet. You know what I mean? He's not one of those big names at junior middleweight. So I don't think that he has that you know, he's going to get the benefit of the doubt from judges, whereas other fighters will. You know, he's not really the named fighter. Charlo brothers are being pushed heavy. Austin Charlo, even though he's with Heyman, he was never really, you know, marketed as the A side. These Charlo brothers are the A side. So when Erislandy Lara gets in there with another A side, and, you know, I wonder if he's going to be rewarded with the judges. He's always in these nip and tuck close fights. And, you know, these are the type of fights where, you know, they can go either way, and you're not always going to get the nod. And he's got to be cognizant of that.
Definitely.
You know?
Well, I mean, I think Vanes, though, he's still in the mix, though. He's still in the mix. So is Austin Trout. That's a good fight, Vanes versus Trout, you know, but
yeah.
You know, but they're still in the mix, I think. I mean, you know, I don't know. You think so? Some of these guys are probably moving up soon. So
yeah, Charlo, I think Jamal will move up. He'll probably finish out the year at junior middleweight. He may have 2 more fights at junior middleweight. And
Jamal's definitely moving up. That's a big dude right there.
He's got to move up within you know, at least by next year at some point. But let's talk about what's next for these guys.
Yeah.
Now, I hope, you know, Jermell Charlo in his fight with John Jackson definitely fought out of character. So if he approaches some of these other fights in the same manner he approached this John Jackson fight, and he doesn't land that home run, he's going to find himself on the end of some decisions. So he's got to, you know, rethink, you know, his strategy and how he's going to, you know, approach boxing moving forward. And he's got to go back to the old Jermell Charlo and be that boxer, be that mover. Because, you know, just think what would have happened if he was in there with Austin Trout and he was employing that same style he employed against John Jackson. How would that fight have turned out? Because look at his brother, who's bigger and stronger and perceived to be a hotter puncher. He had a nip and tuck, really close, hotly contested fight with Trout. And, you know, you got to give Jermell Charlo credit because he's stuck to the game plan somewhat. He didn't look frustrated at all. He didn't have that look of desperation on his face, and he wasn't really taking crazy chances. He was still trying to set the big right hand up off the jab, and he was still jabbing his way in, whereas Jermell was just kind of really throwing haymakers in there, and you know, he was really getting wild a little bit, and he was pinning his hopes on just one big shot, hoping to get you know, Jackson out of there, as if he's all of a sudden, you know, this big puncher. So the roles were reversed. I mean, you know, Jermell was fighting more like Jamal, and Jamal was fighting in spots more like Jermell. So I think that Jermell's got to go back to that old, you know, boxing, moving type style that got him to this point in his career right now. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next for him. Obviously, Jermell Charlo has Julian Williams in his sights. He's the mandatory challenger. The mandatory contender for that IBF title that Jamal holds. I don't know. Do you know a lot about Julian Williams? How do you see that fight playing out? Because Julian Williams is another big, strong junior middleweight who balloons up to 170 on fight night.
Big guy, yeah.
That's going to be a war. That's going to be a shootout. What do you think of that matchup?
Ooh. This is against which Charlo is this again? Jermell?
Jamal. I know it's confusing, but yeah, I got after about 2 years, I finally got it down.
So, and it doesn't help that they're twins, so you can't see the older or the younger one. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's a tough fight, man. Because I think Charlotte takes it, to be honest. You know?
yeah, I think so too.
I think he takes
so
it, but it's a good fight. That's a big dude, you know?
Yeah. As much
I
as
mean,
I like, as much as I like J Rock, I think he's solid all around. I think he's a well-rounded boxer and he's got some decent pop. But there's nothing really extraordinary about him. He's like that guy that just does everything well, and he's not gonna really blow a guy out of it. He's gotta, wear him down, and he's gotta break him down. And I don't think that
he's got he's that guy who has the fundamentals down. He's solid everywhere, but he's not.
Yeah, just not exceptionally gifted in any area, but he's definitely solid in every area. He's just an all-around good fighter, solid defense, keeps his hands up high. Really fluid puncher, sets up shots. Really technically gifted. He knows how to fight.
You don't want to have a bad night against him. You'll lose.
Yeah, he's a Philly fighter with knows how to fight. He really knows how to fight. But the thing is, I just think Jamal's a little bit quicker. He may be a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, and I think that's going to be the difference in the fight.
He's got power too. I mean,
yeah, he's got power. So just his physical advantages overall, I think, will just be a little bit too much, or they'll be the deciding factor in a fight with Williams. And I think on paper it's really a close 50-50-ish type fight, but I just would have to edge it ever so slightly to Jamal because of those things I said. Very, very interesting.
I'm a believer in these Charlo brothers, man. Look, Trout's no slouch. You know what I mean?
Oh, not at all.
Trout edged out a decision against Miguel Cotto, and some people argue he beat Canelo. You know what I mean? So this was an impressive win. So
no doubt about that, man. No doubt about that. So let's talk about Lara. I know he's called out Golovkin.
He did, by the way, just for everybody to know. He called out Golovkin and Canelo. The translator only said Canelo for whatever reason, but
yeah, because maybe they don't really want him to fight Golovkin. We don't want to keep pushing this Golovkin fight. We don't want that. Well, let's talk about this though. Honestly,
yeah,
I don't see a way he can beat Golovkin. I think when he sits and waits, Golovkin's just going to be up in his chest, and we've seen guys really hit him with body shots. And Golovkin is a hellacious body puncher. I don't see
with a variety of body shots, but it's not. Vanes was just throwing hooks to the body, and he was having trouble with that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Golovkin has a wide array of body shots,
And what I've always said about Golovkin is I think he's solid outside and inside. But if I have to, pick a way to fight him, I think he's less dangerous from the outside as opposed to inside because, when he's up close, he is really like digging to the body, then coming upstairs with hooks. He just really gets a lot of leverage on those short chopping shots on the inside. That's where I think he's most powerful. When he shortens up those punches, especially when he digs to the body and comes back with the left hook upstairs, and we've seen Lara have so much trouble with guys when they get up in his chest, and if Golovkin is up in Lara's chest, I don't know how he's going to hold him off.
Not only that, Golovkin's a Terminator in there. He's those moments where Vanes was kind of getting annoyed because Lara was moving away and waving his hands and telling him "come on" or something or whatever,
Yeah.
Golovkin's he's just going to be cutting off the ring. He's not going to waste time doing that, So, I just don't how Lara takes that body assault. I just don't. I like Lara and all, but I don't see it. I don't know how he gets away from it. Lara might win round one, and then that's it. Maybe.
Yeah, I think he'd win around here and there, but overall, it doesn't really matter because I don't think he finishes the fight. You know what I mean? I think he gets stopped, but it is what it is, man.
It's a bad matchup for Lara. I'll just say that. You know what I mean?
Well, speaking of Golovkin, obviously we got to talk about Canelo Alvarez whenever Golovkin's name is brought up. You're a Mexican descent.
Yeah.
You're a Mexican descent boxing fan. What are your thoughts on Canelo? What do you think the general consensus is out there, particularly in the Mexican Latino community, with him vacating his WBC middleweight title?
There is a civil war going on between Mexican Americans right now.
Wow.
It's a mix, man. Some are just Canelo all the way, no matter what. He is correct by definition because he's Mexican and I'm Mexican. That's it. And, it is what it is, but what are you going to do? And then you have the Mexican fight fans that are just, they're boxing fans. And they put the sport above any fighter, and let's just say that a lot of Mexicans are pretty upset that Canelo vacated the title, and Mexican fight fans, what Canelo said in a post-fight, Mexico, we don't fuck around.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
He wasn't. The problem is he's the one fucking around, right? That's the problem. And so they do say that in Mexico, but you're the one doing it, I'm a fan of Canelo's. Do I believe he could beat Golovkin? No. Right? But in all honesty, if he would have gone in there, give it his all, even in a loss, he would have kept all his fan base. He just would have, So, but for whatever reason, he decided that he didn't want to take that risk and take that fight, or he's not ready for the fight, or what have you. He won't come out and say that, but if anything, he probably should. I think he was cornered. I think he's in a predicament right now. Because when you think about it, if it's not Golovkin, right? Who else can he fight that will make him that much money? I mean, when you think about it. And I understand the argument's going to be, well, there's nobody Golovkin could fight that could make him that money. But right now, specifically, we're talking about Canelo, right? Who can he fight right now that will be as big of a fight like that for Canelo? I don't see that fight out there.
Well, what about there could be a Cotto rematch? There could be a Mayweather rematch.
I'll give you the Cotto rematch, but the Mayweather rematch, I don't think it's going to happen. But
yeah, that could happen. I don't know. Let's take a look.
I mean, a lot of these guys, man, the Charlo brothers, I mean, they have a shot against Canelo. Some of them,
yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people will pick, Jamal would beat him. He could beat him. It's not impossible.
Charlo, Demetrius Andre, J-Rock.
Andret's another guy.
J-Rock would be a tough test. Erislandy Lara could possibly beat him in a rematch. But yeah, I think the Cotto rematch or the Mayweather rematch, or if he fights Pacquiao, which probably won't happen either. That would be a huge money fight, I think, too. But other than those,
which all those require him to have either a rematch, or another guy, Pacquiao in this case, having to move up to fight him.
Yeah.
Here's my thing with Canelo, okay? And I'll put it this way. And I talked about this to you earlier. Everybody knows I'm against catchweights. That's not a secret, okay? But I can rate the level of ridiculousness with each catchweight if I want. So, did Pacquiao ask for a catchweight against Cotto? Yes. But Pacquiao started his career at 106 pounds. Did Mayweather fight at a catchweight when he fought Canelo? Yes. Mayweather started his career at 130. Did De La Hoya ask for a catchweight against Hopkins? Yes. De La Hoya started his career at 130. Canelo, right, won his first world title at 154 pounds. And the guy refuses to fight anywhere. He can't make 154 anymore and refuses to fight above 155. That is insane. I never seen something like this ever.
Well, is that why he dropped the belt? So he could just say, okay, Golovkin, the fight's at 155, and it doesn't matter because it won't be for your title, win, lose, or draw.
I knew he was going to do that in the post-fight interview.
Yeah, he just set it up where it's not about me and you fighting at middleweight. It's just about.
Think about it.
What
did Golovkin do, right? What did Golovkin do to make it personal? I mean, Canelo made it sound like it was personal. Like, we're not going to fight for the title. We're going to fight for honor and pride. Like, what did he do? Fuck your wife? Like, what did you do?
Well, obviously that's just the heat he's getting from the fans. It's bothering him. It's getting to him. But so that's why he dropped the belt, because he's going to say to Canelo, he's going to say to Golovkin, basically, this isn't a title fight. This is just a fight between you and I. It has nothing to do with middleweight, junior middleweight. This is just you and I fighting.
Very convenient.
Yeah, this is just you and I fighting. I don't care about belts anymore. This fight is going to be for honor, but it's going to be on my terms 100%, and that's 155 pounds. So,
like the way I read it was this is like, I don't care about belts. Yeah, I've been paying sanctioning fees for a while now for title fights, but all of a sudden, now that I have to fight you, I don't care about belts. That's how I read it, you know. All of a sudden, he doesn't care about belts. You know, he cared about belts before, you know. He never respected the belts. I'll give him that, you know, if we're honest. I think his actions showed that, and it's just a reality. I mean, his first world title, he won it against a welterweight, you know, at 150-pound catchweight, which he didn't even make. You know, this was the WBC, by the way. You know, the WBC allowed him to fight for the middleweight title 155. Which made, you know, you could argue made sense. It was against Cotto, but still, he got to defend it at 155 as well against a welterweight. There is a pattern here. This is not just one fight, you know. And when a fight came along that you could show, okay, you could move up and fight too, he just refused to do it. You know, so he has no problem with guys moving up to fight him. You know, but when it comes to him moving up 6 pounds or 5 pounds, I'm sorry, to fight somebody, he just won't do it. I mean, it's honestly, it's ridiculous. I mean, I would argue that, you know, because your original question was, how is this around the Mexican American community? I can't answer for Mexico, but in the Mexican American community, it's very spread. It's very divided on how to feel about this Canelo situation. And I'll end it with this. The only good argument they have for Canelo is, well, he's the one with the money. He calls the shots. That's all they have. I mean, that's literally all they have.
Yeah, I mean, is that enough though? That's the thing.
And why was he okay with a belt when he fought Khan? You know, why did he pay a sanctioning fee if he didn't care about the belt? So either he's lying or he's dumb because he's paying sanctioning fees when he doesn't care about belts. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a slippery slope. It doesn't make sense to me, man. And it's just very convenient that all of a sudden, like you said, you know, we don't fight for belts, we fight for honor. So then why was this so important in the first place to become champion? So it's only important to become champion when it suits your needs or it's convenient for you. And again, I'm not here to shit on Canelo. I mean,
plus, I mean, the way he acted though, like if the WBC had it in for him, like, well, no, they're putting a deadline on me. Like, really, dude? Like,
I mean, I'm not here to shit on Canelo. I mean, you know, obviously he's doing what he needs to do to put food on his table for his family. He's making a lot of money, whatever. But at the end of the day, you know, you're gonna catch backlash. You can't be considered a great fighter unless you do great things. And if you're not gonna want to do great things moving forward in your career, then hey, you know what? You could just do it. You know, you could just be a fighter that's involved in events and showcases, as opposed to being in real super fights like the great fighters were involved in. And
look, I understand that basically, Canelo's point of view, it's, oh, come on, you're asking me to move up and fight. Of course, the guy's in a way the same on, or probably more than the day of the fight, right? But still, that aside, I mean, Durant went up from lightweight to welterweight to fight Sugar Ray Leonard. You know, guys moved up to fight Hagler. I mean, this is stuff great fighters do. And yes, a lot of all-time greats, in this era too have asked for catch weights. But just look at if somebody wants to point it out and call me a liar, go ahead. But these are the facts. A lot of these guys moved up several divisions before they ever asked for a catch weight in any fight. It was literally towards, after 4 or 5 divisions or something in many cases.
Towards the end of their careers. And not only that, getting back to, being great. And then people can say, well, why didn't Marvin Hagler ever move up? Well, Marvin Hagler had guys moving up to fight him and guys moving down to fight him who were very, very good fighters. All the great fighters came to Marvin Hagler. So he didn't really have to move up because all of the super fights at that particular time were being made at middleweight. So there was no need for Hagler to move up. If that was the case,
I mean, he may have moved up if he didn't feel so, because he lost that Sugar Ray Leonard fight, which I feel he won. But I mean, that's a debate we don't even want to start right now. But I think he felt so heartbroken that he felt so robbed that he retired. He would have probably moved up if he didn't retire.
But not only that, though, if you look, the super middleweight division actually came out in 1984, and that was
true.
The IBF.
Good point.
And the IBF basically, was the first division, if I'm not mistaken, to have the super middleweight division. It wasn't really popular back then. There was really no big name fighters back then, and it really didn't start. It didn't really start picking up until the WBC created their version back, in 1988. And that's
Leonard won it, yeah.
That's when Leonard won it. So there was really no big fights to be made at super middleweight. So there was really no reason for Hagler to move up at that particular time. But who knows what would have happened if he continued fighting after the Leonard fight, and
Plus, I mean, Hagler kept making weight. Canelo can't make weight anymore, so that kind of isn't that kind of it's. I'm just saying, if he cannot make 154 anymore, then what is he? He's a middleweight.
Yeah,
I mean, it's common sense.
And Hagler wasn't a huge middleweight either. He was like 5'8.5", 5'9" He didn't have huge arms. He wasn't an exceptionally tall guy.
Yep.
And he was fighting bigger guys too. He was fighting taller guys, longer guys too. So he always gave up, height and reach to his opponent. So it wasn't like he was always the bigger guy and the stronger guy in there. So he had look at Tommy Hearns. He was towered over him. He had way longer arms than him, and you saw what he was able to do to Tommy Hearns.
True.
So,
well, I mean, look, man. When it comes to Canelo's situation, and I think a lot of people have talked about this, especially us, but he's in a position where he's a big guy, like he's big boned. You know what I mean? He has that like the wrestler's type body, and moving up, I think if he moves up, obviously to middleweight, you're looking at just naturally it's gonna be bigger guys there, and guys who are gonna weigh the same on fight night as himself. And I don't know if that's like a concern Canelo has. I don't know if it's like he won't have that mental edge knowing he's a bigger guy. I just don't know what it is, but he's going to have to deal with it. Like that's something he's going to have to deal with at some point.
Well, it's like this. Some of these guys like Danny Jacobs, and Peter Quillen, they're ballooning up to 180 pounds.
Yep.
So he's going to be 170 pounds. They're going to be 180 pounds. So he'll be giving up some size, and maybe he just always wants to be that bigger guy come fight night. But against Golovkin, won't they be practically the same size on fight night? So
they'll be the same, pretty much. I mean, 3 or 4 rounds apart, maybe. If anything, Canelo might win more on fight night. But
yeah, definitely. So that's the thing.
I just know that everyone carries water weight differently, obviously. Canelo feels comfortable with that. Well, I don't know. He looked kind of off at the weigh-in last fight, so Canelo weight might move up to 156, I think that's going to be the new weight class for him.
Yeah. Well, one last thing I want to talk about, too, because this is getting some press recently, is this Heyman Arum lawsuit. I guess they reached a settlement here, and both parties have filed for dismissal, and the case has been dismissed now. What are your thoughts on this case, and who do you think really won here, or do you think it's just basically a stalemate here? And And how do you think the result of this case is going to impact boxing moving forward? Do you think these guys are going to work together?
What exactly was the result? Like, what was the
It was basically a joint dismissal of the case.
Oh, gotcha.
And under the terms of the dismissal, they can't reveal. If they both are under confidentiality agreements where they can't really talk about, what happened and what the, who's getting what, and they really can't discuss the outcomes of this case in detail. So it leads us to believe certain things, other reporters out there kind of saying things and a lot of rumors per se, but no one really knows exactly what the results of this case are in terms of like, what are the details of it? What are the repercussions of it? Who actually gets what, and who's gonna make out getting the better out of the result of this case?
Well, this is how we might find out. I think we're going to find out in time.
Yeah.
We're going to start seeing the fights, and we're going to start seeing, like, for example, just throwing it out there, but let's say Top Rank starts having fighters on PBC or something like that, then maybe we'll have an idea of what happened, or if PBC starts losing certain contracts, or it's probably going to take some time to kind of find out who won. I think anyone will at this point claim that they know what happened. I mean, unless they were there in the courtroom, nobody knows. You know what I mean?
Well, what if PBC, or not PBC fighters per se, what if Al Heyman managed fighters are able to get HBO dates, like Amir Khan, for instance, on HBO pay-per-view, Dominic Wade, for instance, on HBO Showtime, championship boxing, right? So where else would Dominic Wade be able to go to get the payday he got when he fought at HBO against Gennady Golovkin? Where else would Amir Khan be able to go outside of fighting Pacquiao Mayweather, maybe even not fighting Pacquiao Mayweather, getting the payday he got fighting on HBO pay-per-view against a Golden Boy fighter? So, I don't think anyone's going to really lose here per se, because people are saying, well, now Heyman's going to be forced to work with other promoters. Well, what's wrong with that? How does that hurt Heyman? You know what I'm saying? Like, right. I don't see how that hurts Heyman. If big fights can be made and both sides are getting big money, how does he lose? Like, how did Heyman lose by having Amir Khan fight Canelo? How did he lose by having Dominic Wade fight Golovkin? How did he lose by having Chris Arreola fight Romain Stavern on HBO? How did he lose?
So you're saying nothing could be revealed here. So what if, because you already know reporters are going to be asking Al Heyman questions, or not Al Heyman, I'm sorry, nobody can find him. But I meant Bob Arum, right?
Yeah.
Bob Arum is, in the heat of the moment, he just bursts shit out. So.
Well, I'm going to try and see if I can pull up a quote by Dan Rafael, because apparently Dan Rafael did talk to Bob Arum about it, and Bob Arum did, say some things, but he really couldn't say too much.
Okay.
Let me just see if I can pull this up. Try and pull this up, man. If I
what could happen here is that either Top Rank and PBC just kind of both agree to, you go your way, we go our way, and we'll just let things be,
Well, according to, I'm going to paraphrase here because I can't find the exact thing, but if I remember correctly, Dan Rafael basically said that at the end of the day, what they really wanted was to shake the confidence of the investors and the networks. And he said that it was really Todd DeBuff, who is Bob Arum's son-in-law, and who's also he's the vice president of Top Rank, who really wanted this case. And at the end of the day, what they were really looking for was some blowback from the investors and the networks. And once that, Waddell and Reed was removed from this case, then they said, well, you know what? What's really to gain here? And once that transpired, there was really nothing for them to gain. So at the end of the day, I look at this as basically a stalemate. And if you want to look at this as a victory for Arum, You can, because basically he was the guy who had less fighters. So now if he's able to open up his stable to Al Heyman fighters, then yeah, he wins. But
it could have been a compromise. It could even been a because if it's a stalemate, though, by definition, the one that wanted to gain something out of it was Arum. You know, Top Rank are the ones that put out the lawsuit, right? So if it's a stalemate and nobody gained anything, wouldn't Heyman be the one that came out on top?
Well, I think Heyman wins because he's not really losing anything. He can still do what he wants to do. But
people need to understand, right? He's a manager and not a promoter.
Yeah, but the perception out there is, oh, well, now he's going to be forced to work with other promoters. When did he ever really say that he didn't want to work with other promoters?
True. I mean, if anything, there were both sides were guilty for not working with each other.
Yeah, and this just goes back to, other situations. And, I've been around a long time, and you've been around not as long as me, but you kind of...
This is proof, though, that even the United States justice system doesn't want to deal with our bullshit. Like, this boxing shit, get it out of here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a waste of taxpayers' money. But not only that, it's just like there's always been periods of time when, this promoter wouldn't work with that promoter and that promoter wouldn't work with this promoter. But at the end of the day, when they needed to work together for the sake of making big fights that made sense financially, they would always come together. And then we saw Arum and Heyman come together for Pacquiao Mayweather. And I would not be surprised in the slightest if we see a Mayweather Pacquiao too, which I really think we're going to see probably next year in May. I just think we're going to see.
Speaking of, Don King, he was in the house tonight too.
Don King, baby. Don King was there.
What was that about, man? The shove and the push. What was that about?
I forget that guy's name that he promotes. It's another junior.
That he wants to. He's blatantly trying to look like Mayweather.
Yeah. He's the mandatory for Jamel Charlo. I'm gonna have to look up that guy's name. I forget his name, but he's Jamel Charlo's mandatory. So he was in the house, and Don King was there. Kind of reminded me of that movie. Remember The Great White Hype? When you had Samuel L. Jackson. And then you had that white guy who was the champ, and he was getting ready to fight the other guy. But there was always that other guy in the background, the ball guy with the he always wore like a bright red blazer, and he was always trying to blow up the spot, And then he was just there, always popping up, saying, "Oh, you need to fight me instead of this guy."
You know what? I know Mike Tyson played that role on Rocky Balboa, if you remember, when Tarver, I forgot what was his name in the movie, Lion Dixon.
Yeah, Mason Lion Dixon.
Mason Dixon. Yeah. So when he was walking up the steps, and Tyson's like yelling at him, like, "I want you. You should fight me. This is charity. This is charity." Mike Tyson was playing that guy, the bald guy that, supposedly the champ is not fighting or whatever. But
no, I get you. Yep. Well, what else you want to talk about, man? It's kind of getting late over here. I think we covered a lot of stuff, man. But
here's what we should end it with, and we talked about this earlier.
Okay.
Right? Why is welterweight the most popular division in boxing? And I'm not saying everybody who listens to this has to agree with that, but those are the facts. I mean,
all right. Let's give our thoughts. Why? Well, let me give you why I think it's one of the best divisions, and it's my favorite division. Because if you look at all of the great fighters in history, people's top fighters, if you look at anyone's top 10 and you ask someone who their favorite fighter is, more than likely they were a welterweight at some point in time, or they are a welterweight right now. Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, Roberto Duran, Wilfredo Benitez. They were all welterweights. You know what I'm saying? Henry Armstrong.
One point or another, yeah.
Right?
And their mega fights in many cases were at welterweight.
Exactly. And usually the face of boxing, like when Sugar Ray Leonard was boxing, Oscar De La Hoya as well. He was a welterweight. Sugar Ray Leonard, like the most popular guy in boxing and the guy who generated the most revenue was generally a welterweight more often than not.
Outside of heavyweight for a while, yeah.
In a lot of instances. You know, even when Larry Holmes was around, the Fab Four were the guys that were making all the money, right?
So some of the biggest fights, man, were either at welterweight or not that far from welterweight. You know,
Exactly.
aside from heavyweight. You know what I mean? Like when was a super middleweight title fight on pay-per-view, you know, doing over 500,000? It's never happened.
And the biggest events were at welterweight. Think about it. Well, actually, it was Mayweather Pacquiao is a welterweight fight. That's going to be the biggest event of all time. But Oscar De La Hoya and Floyd Mayweather was at junior middleweight, and Floyd Mayweather
Not that far from it.
Yeah, Floyd Mayweather versus Canelo was a junior middleweight. But again, right after those,
but that fight still revolved around champion moving up to fight De La Hoya.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes. And in both instances, Floyd Mayweather won those fights and went right back down to welterweight. So it was like he made a pit stop. So basically, a welterweight was involved in the 3 highest grossing fights of all time in the sport. And that's Floyd Mayweather.
Even pre-pay-per-view, though. Even when we go past let's not forget De La Hoya Trinidad. For a long time, that was a big 1.4 million, and for the early 2000s, that was a lot. For 99, I think the fight was in 99.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Not only that, though, let's talk about what we were talking about earlier, how welterweight actually is a cool name. Because who wants to be called a lightweight? Like in life, when you're called a lightweight, that's kind of like a derogatory term. And then a featherweight is even worse than that because you're lighter than a lightweight. And then so on and so forth to go beneath the featherweight.
And then like flyweight sounds weak. I mean, a fly, dude. A fly.
Then if you're a middleweight, you're right in between everything. You're not at the top, you're not at the bottom. Like you're stuck in the middle. Like you're meat. You know what I mean?
You're just in the middle, man. You're like the third wheel. You know,
light heavyweight.
The third wheel of boxing.
You know, light heavyweight. What's that, man? You're not big enough to be heavyweight. Cruiserweight, you're just cruising through divisions. You're just a cruiserweight stuck in limbo. And heavyweight, you're just a big, you're big heavy guy. You know, there's no aura about that. You don't have to make weight. There's no intrigue. Like you just show up. You don't have to train, and you can just walk in the ring at whatever weight you want. What's so cool about that? You know what I mean? Welterweight
just sounds cool. It does. I know it sounds lame. I know it does, but it like saying it, but like just being like, oh, I'm not saying it's my favorite division because it sounds cool, but I'm going to be honest with you. When I was a young kid and I heard the word welterweight, it just caught my attention, man. If I'm honest, you know, it sounded like welterweight. Like wow, like it doesn't sound weak. It sounds cool. You know, I even prefer super welterweight over junior middleweight.
Yep. Yeah.
Who wants to be junior? You know, it's like what the middleweight champ is your daddy or what? You know, it's just why would you want to be junior? You know, super sounds so much better, but welterweight, the name, I would be a liar, and I think most people have to admit it out there. The name has a lot to do with it. You know, and that's the division I mostly grew up watching, man. Like De La Hoya had his big pay-per-view run at welterweight for a while.
Absolutely.
Mayweather had a pay-per-view run at welterweight. Some of Pacquiao's biggest pay-per-view fights were at welterweight.
I agree.
You know, as far as numbers wise, just Trinidad was a pay-per-view attraction. You know, and he was a welterweight.
Yep.
You know, Sugar Ray Leonard is known as a welterweight. Sugar Ray Robinson, welterweight. Carmen Basilio, welterweight. I mean, I could go on forever. You know, it's a division that just caught my interest. And I'll tell you what, and this is another thing we talked about. You know how a lot of people talk about pound for pound, right?
Correct.
So here's the thing with pound for pound. Why is it for so many years, and it's a fictional list, but why does this list so often have welterweights in it?
At the top more often than not, too.
Yeah, and I think the reason is when you think heavyweight, what do you think of? Power, right?
Oh yeah.
Do you think speed?
Not first off, no.
Not first thought. Like overall, we're gonna pick out some fast heavyweight. Ali was he had the speed of a middleweight, right? Yeah. But you know, that's Ali. You know, but as far as, you know, overall, it's known for power, but not much speed. Flyweights, you know, are they known for speed? Yeah, but would you mind getting hit in the shoulder by a flyweight, Beeb?
No, not at all. maybe now because I'm getting old and I'm kind of fragile. But when I was in my
Like
prime,
there is not one grown man in the United States that weighs over 200 pounds that would be scared of getting in the ring with a flyweight champ. I'm not saying that it would turn out good for them. I'm just saying that they're more likely to get in the ring with a featherweight champion than the heavyweight champion. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
But they're known for, you know, speed, but they're not known for power. There's hardly any knockouts with these little guys. That's true. So welterweight, you get a mix of everything.
That's true.
They're fast enough and they're powerful enough. It's kind of there is a and I'll admit it, that there is a bias when you talk pound for pound. It may be a subconscious bias, but there is a bias for welterweight. It's kind of like that's where, and I know we talked like historically, the middleweight division was that, and that's why it's called the middleweight division. But nowadays, welterweight's like that middle ground where it's powerful enough and it's fast enough. And whenever people in their heads picture these fighters like all being the same size or whatever, I mean, it's so the system of pound for pound is so biased towards the welterweight in the subconscious level. You know, and I think that's why a lot of welterweights are in the pound for pound list, and very often.
That's true. That's true.
So that's why welterweight. No offense to Mr. Boxing Today, welterweight's where it's at.
All right, man. Always a pleasure, man. And all you guys, I hope you comment on, give us your opinion on what you thought about the fights tonight, what you thought about some of the topics we talked about. Because as always, we like to have good debate. It's not about who's right or who's wrong. I mean, if you can present a strong argument one way or the other, we're here to listen to you, man. We're not going to shoot down anyone's comments unless they're kind of, racial comments or aggressive comments or comments that just have nothing to do with what we're talking about in general. But other than that, man, I got nothing else for you. DStyle, anything else?
I'll take my bow, man. Peace out, everybody.
All right, peace.